So I just had a shower. First time in a couple days. Felt amazing. I mean, you do what you can to keep your hygiene up. And like clean clothes definitely helps. You know, that's why one of the comments the guy was saying he doesn't have a car. And that definitely sucks. It's not a situation you want to be in. Even if it's a beater up, if you got a good place to park it, if a friend's got like quarter acre, 2 acres or something, somewhere where you can park it and not be harassed or charged with trespassing. Like even if they just like tow it there and you walk into town and do what you can to get back on your feet. Try not to make a nuisance, where they want to kick you off after a while. So, clean up after yourself and whatnot. Like it's one good way to go. And man, if you have no support network, you got to look at the shelters are a good option. Not the best option, obviously. It's a shelter. There's going to be drama. There's going to be, they usually have curfews, but most of the time they'll get you a meal and all that. And yeah, they usually try and save those spaces for people that like really, really need them. Not guys like me that, I've got an option. It's not a great one, but it's not the worst. It wasn't as worse or as bad as my, two-door full of mold. But yeah, the things I'd recommend. If you know you're about to be like on the streets homeless, it's like I was telling him, you'd want to get a sleeping bag that's rated for like the coldest time of year for your environment. For here in Oregon, that gets down to freezing. So definitely want to get a sleeping bag rated for freezing weather. You'll die if you don't have one. There's, it's been a couple of guys out here that have, they're high and they didn't even realize they're going through hypothermia, and, they find them a day or, sometimes 4 or 5 days later because we had a really bad blizzard blow over from Reno, or I can't remember if it came down through like Idaho and then swept west, or if it was west and swept east. But yeah, it was brutal. Power lines were down. I don't think emergency services could get to you if you were, on a country road camping out or something like that. Maybe in the city, but yeah, if you don't have a sleeping bag rated for that, you're a popsicle. So yeah, sleeping bag rated for your cold. If it's gonna get down to freezing and you've only got a sleeping bag rated for like 40 or 50 degrees, like get Mylar blankets. They're super cheap, usually in the camping section of Walmart. I think they're only like $2 or something like that. But you basically want to wrap yourself up like a baked potato. Get your sleeping bag and then just kind of try and wrap, especially like your trunk area, because like as you start to get cold, the blood will rush away from your extremities to try and keep your heart and your internal organs warm. So as long as you keep your trunk well insulated, it'll allow your body to keep the blood flow into, so your fingers don't get frostbite and whatnot. And a foam pad. Even sleeping in my car, like I knew when I was starting to go back down the hill of like, oh crap, I'm gonna be homeless again. I made sure to get myself like a nice thick foam pad, because I'm a big guy, so the regular ones just won't do. I just smush them. But yeah, sleeping on the ground is not fun. Even if you have a cheap tent with one of those like it's basically just tarp material for a bottom. If you're trying to camp out in the thicket, or on a riverbed, even in a parking lot, like, the rocks are gonna suck. And a foam pad's something that, like, you can get rolled up real tight, and either, put it in a garbage bag and try and get the air out and tie it off, something to keep it where you can have, your sleeping, especially, another one that, like, especially if you don't have a secure place to sleep, I'd refrain from trying to get too many special things, because dudes are probably going to try and roll you for them. Like, I wish people out here weren't like animals. I mean, most animals themselves have code, you know. Monkeys and wolves and other apex predators know not to steal from each other, or you get ripped apart. But not out here. And there's definitely the element of desperation. So yeah, don't get a whole bunch of fancy things. If you can, get yourself a used backpack, or if you're going to get a new one, try and make it look rough. Don't show it off, especially to other people around this area that are your area that are homeless. Don't go flashing your, expensive Swiss Army knife, or, just all the little stuff that you have. Keep it tight. Keep your inventory to yourself. Don't tell a bunch of people about it. I mean, yeah, if you can get a backpack and be able to sling your foam roll and your sleeping bag on it, that's a great way to travel. Because, yeah, you can at least keep maybe some spare clothes, socks. I mean, you can wear the same pair of jeans. I'm pretty sure they did a study on it where, like, jeans worn for 30 days straight without being washed had the same amount of bacteria as a freshly washed pair of jeans. Like, they'll stink, probably, but you can, wash them in the river and whatnot, and, drip dry them. It's not the best, but it cuts down on the smell, which, I mean, I was getting to the point where I was like, man, I need a shower because I can smell myself, which means other people definitely smell you, which is not good. So yeah, but socks is incredibly important. I mean, especially in the cold, when your body starts, drawing the blood away from your extremities, the feet become extremely uncomfortable being cold. It's weird. It's like our body doesn't want us to lose our feet. And you can also, I mean, depending on how rainy the environment is, or if you, go trudging around in sludge, you can get, pretty sure they used to call it trench foot, but your feet can, they do that pruning in order to get more traction or something. This is the evolutionary, whatever they call it. But it also makes them more susceptible to bacterial and fungal infection. So you want to keep your feet dry and keep them clean. I mean, there's so many guys out here that pull off their sock and, oh my God. Like, dude, you need to have that looked at. That's, like, you don't have a toenail anymore. And, yeah, there's not a whole lot else that you can really, there's some things that I'd recommend. Like, if you're in a heavily forested area and you're a little bit crafty, I mean, maybe if you can get yourself a ball of Ute twine, you can kind of make an impromptu shelter where you just, you have two things. Usually you try and find yourself a Y-shaped branch for either side, stick them in the ground so you can put something over the top between these two, and then you can lay a bunch of sticks down diagonally from that frame and just line it with sticks, tie everything together so it's strong, and then you can basically try and find a bunch of just any kind of especially like reed grass, something that you can basically make shakes out of. If you want to get really fancy, you can throw mylar over the top, or especially a tarp over the top, and then coat it in, not leaves because they'll start to break down and become like a sludge, but yeah, things like reed grass or something that at least for a while, will wick the water away. And you kind of make like a little lean-to shelter. Um, Make sure it faces, if I'm not mistaken, the wind usually either comes from at least here out in the northwest, it always comes from the ocean, so it's heading east. Um, but I mean, you can kind of get a feel for the wind patterns and try and position the entrance away from the wind. That way, you can also have a fire, and it'll blow the smoke away from your lean-to. Um, Try and stay clean. I know it's tough, but like you basically have no hope of getting back on your feet if you start using it. There's so many guys like I could feel like this dude's about to get back on his feet. And he starts using, and it's a downward slide. I mean, nobody wants to help a user. I mean, either through, you know, what do they call that when you're enabling? Nobody wants to enable you, or they just find the act reprehensible in general. I mean, they don't see it as like, I literally have no excitement, I never really feel good. I'm always fighting the wind, fighting hunger, fighting. And like, this is one thing that I do that, kind of, gives me a mental leave, a vacation from me. But hard drugs is not the way to go. I mean, alcohol I wouldn't even recommend. It's just, once you start getting into it, you can't escape it. And you convince yourself you need it in order to be normal, but you're not normal anymore. People can tell, people can smell, you know. Don't use. It's tough, but try and find, there's all kinds of like, events, or and I know this all just seems like the same suggestions other people would give you. Just find a way to occupy your time. Like, yeah, that's great. I still have like 6 more hours of time, and I don't have anything on me to do. But I mean, all you can do is try. Try and find something other than using it. Yeah, it's terrible. Um, yeah, as I mentioned, if you've got a network, maybe try and find somebody who's willing to lend out like a shed on their property, or again, if they have a couple of acres and they know you're a solid guy, um, especially if it's forested acres, be like, man, can I just basically set up a camp in the back? Like, I promise it'll be nothing dirty, I'll keep my stuff clean. I need a place to have some shelter and some safety, while I walk to work every day and try and get back on my feet. Because, like, a lot of people, at least from what I've noticed, is like, if you keep your demands small or your requests small, and especially if you frame it as like, while I'm trying to get my stuff back together, I'll be no little to no burden to you at all. I need a place where I can feel safe and sleep. I mean, yeah. And yeah, just try and stay strong. I know it's tough, but that's literally all you can do.